Everything about the magnesium conversation is framed around sleep, sleep supplement, relaxation mineral, the calming nutrient that helps you wind down. That framing is accurate but incomplete. What magnesium does to the body during the hours you sleep is not primarily about making you drowsy. It is about what the body is doing during those hours, the hundreds of enzymatic reactions running the night shift, the muscle repair, the glucose regulation, the cortisol curve, and what happens to all of those processes when the mineral required to run them is consistently present versus consistently low. Approximately 48% of Americans consume less than the recommended daily amount of magnesium, according to data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. This means that for roughly half the population, every biological process that requires magnesium, and there are more than 300 of them, is running at a substrate deficit. The question of what happens when you take magnesium every night is, for most people, a question about what changes when a widespread, silent deficiency is corrected during the hours when the body's repair systems are most active. Think of your body during sleep as a factory running its night shift. The day shift handled the visible work, movement, cognition, digestion, social interaction. The night shift handles what the day shift cannot: deep cellular repair, hormone recalibration, glucose system reset, inflammatory clearance, tissue rebuilding. These are not background processes. They are the primary maintenance operations that determine how the building performs during the next day shift. Magnesium is one of the primary raw materials the night shift runs on. It is required as a cofactor for ATP synthesis, for protein synthesis, for DNA repair enzymes, for cortisol regulation, for melatonin production. A factory running its night shift with low magnesium is like a factory that scheduled its most critical maintenance operations but did not stock the parts. Here are the 5 things that change when you add magnesium every night. Number 1, melatonin rises and cortisol falls more efficiently. These are the 2 hormones most directly responsible for the quality of sleep, and magnesium influences both simultaneously. Melatonin synthesis requires a specific enzymatic pathway in the pineal gland. Magnesium is a required cofactor for the enzymes in that pathway. A clinical trial cited in multiple systematic reviews found that magnesium supplementation increases melatonin production, not by introducing melatonin directly, but by providing the enzymatic substrate that the body's own melatonin production pathway requires. Cortisol is the counterhormone. When cortisol is elevated in the evening, from stress, from poor sleep history, from inflammatory load, it competes with the sleep signal, keeps the nervous system in a mild alert state, and fragments sleep architecture. Magnesium supports the GABAergic system, the inhibitory neurotransmitter network that directly opposes the cortisol-driven arousal system. By supporting GABA receptor function, magnesium helps the nervous system transition from the day shift's alert state to the night shift's repair state. A randomized controlled trial published in Frontiers in Endocrinology in October 2024, involving 290 patients, found significant associations between magnesium supplementation and both reduced cortisol and increased melatonin levels. The study found these effects in a population with diabetes, a group where sleep disruption and magnesium deficiency frequently coexist. The effect direction is consistent with the biochemical mechanism, even where effect sizes vary by population. The important nuance: the research consistently shows that magnesium's effect on sleep is strongest in people with suboptimal magnesium status. In people with adequate magnesium levels, the effects are more modest. This is not a supplement that overrides physiology. It is a substrate that supports physiology when the substrate has been insufficient. Number 2, ATP production runs more completely during overnight recovery. This is the change that most magnesium content never covers, because it requires understanding one specific biochemical fact that changes how you see every energy-dependent process in the body. ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is not biologically active in its raw form. For ATP to function as the body's energy currency, it must be bound to a magnesium ion. The active form is MgAT. This is not a minor detail. It means that every cell in the body that produces or uses ATP, which is every cell, requires magnesium as a functional prerequisite for energy metabolism. During the night shift, the body is running repair processes that are energetically expensive: protein synthesis for muscle repair, DNA repair in damaged cells, lipid metabolism in the liver, immune cell production. All of these run on ATP. All of these require magnesium to activate the ATP they are using. A night shift running low on the raw material for its primary energy currency runs at reduced capacity. Repair is incomplete. Protein synthesis falls short. The building that was supposed to be fully restored for the next day's shift is not. Taking magnesium at night specifically, rather than in the morning, addresses the timing of when the MgAT requirement is highest. The night shift's energy demands peak during deep sleep stages when growth hormone is elevated and anabolic repair processes are most active. Magnesium availability during those hours determines how completely those processes run. Number 3, muscle relaxation and repair improve together. Magnesium and calcium have an antagonistic relationship in muscle cells that determines the muscle's resting state. Calcium triggers muscle contraction. Magnesium triggers muscle relaxation. The ratio of these two minerals inside muscle cells determines whether a muscle is in a contracted or relaxed state when no active signal is being sent. When magnesium is insufficient, the calcium-to-magnesium ratio shifts toward the contracting side. Muscles hold more baseline tension than they should. Cramps, twitching, and the subjective experience of muscles that feel tight even at rest are consistent symptoms of chronic magnesium insufficiency. At night, muscles are supposed to fully relax as the body transitions into sleep and repair. Insufficient magnesium means that full relaxation does not occur. The muscular tension during sleep is low-grade but continuous. It produces a night of physiologically incomplete rest, even when total sleep duration appears adequate. Magnesium supplementation restores the calcium-to-magnesium ratio toward the relaxation side. Muscles that relax more completely during sleep also repair more completely, because the protein synthesis and ATP-dependent rebuilding processes run more efficiently in tissue that is not maintaining baseline contractile tension. Number 4, insulin sensitivity improves over weeks of consistent use. This is the longest horizon change, and the one that most people who start magnesium for sleep do not expect. Magnesium is a required cofactor for insulin receptor signaling. When insulin binds to its receptor on a cell surface, the downstream signaling cascade that opens the cell's glucose uptake channels requires magnesium-dependent enzymatic steps. Insufficient magnesium at these steps reduces the efficiency of insulin signaling, which means more insulin is required to produce the same glucose uptake response. A meta-analysis referenced across multiple magnesium and metabolic studies found that magnesium supplementation at 350 milligrams per day improved insulin resistance in patients with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. A broader pattern across meta-analyses on magnesium and glycemic control shows consistent improvement in fasting glucose and insulin sensitivity, particularly in people with type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, or metabolic syndrome, populations that consistently show lower serum magnesium levels than healthy controls. The mechanism runs in both directions. Poor insulin sensitivity tends to increase urinary magnesium excretion. The kidneys excrete more magnesium when insulin signaling is impaired. Lower magnesium impairs insulin signaling further. The cycle is self-reinforcing. Breaking it with supplementation produces an effect that compounds over weeks as the enzymatic systems that require magnesium for insulin receptor function gradually normalize. Taking magnesium every night means 12 to 16 hours of the day where the enzymatic systems involved in overnight glucose regulation have adequate substrate. The liver's overnight glycogen and glucose management, the insulin sensitivity of muscle cells during sleep, the inflammatory markers that influence metabolic function, all of these run during the night shift, and all of them involve magnesium at the enzymatic level. Number 5, long-term cellular aging slows in a specific and measurable way. This is the finding that connects everything else on this list to a longer horizon than sleep quality or weekly insulin sensitivity. A study by Dillon, Dio, Thomas, and Fenech, published in the International Journal of Molecular Sciences in 2023, measured telomere length in healthy elderly Australians. The finding, low magnesium in conjunction with poor sleep, accelerates telomere attrition, the shortening of the protective caps on chromosomes that is one of the primary markers of biological aging. The pathway is mechanistic, not coincidental. Magnesium is required by the enzyme telomerase, which maintains and repairs telomere length. Without adequate magnesium, telomerase function is impaired. Sleep deprivation independently accelerates telomere shortening through oxidative stress and cortisol elevation. The combination of low magnesium and poor sleep produced the most accelerated telomere attrition in the study, and the intervention that addresses both simultaneously is, by the mechanism, nightly magnesium supplementation. This is not a dramatic or immediately perceptible change. It operates at the level of DNA architecture over months and years, but it is the change that connects the night shift metaphor to its longest-term purpose. The factory that runs its maintenance correctly every night builds a structure that lasts longer than the factory that consistently skips maintenance. Before the protocol, magnesium supplementation is generally well tolerated in healthy adults at standard doses of 200 to 400 milligrams per day. High doses can cause gastrointestinal symptoms, including loose stools. Magnesium oxide and magnesium citrate are more likely to produce this at higher doses than glycinate or threonate forms. If you have kidney disease, magnesium accumulation is a concern because the kidneys regulate magnesium excretion. Speak with your doctor before starting magnesium supplementation if you have kidney disease, take medications for heart conditions, or take any medication where magnesium may affect absorption. Magnesium is not a substitute for medical treatment of insomnia or any metabolic condition. The effects described here are strongest in people with insufficient magnesium intake and more modest in people who already consume adequate amounts. The practical recommendation from the research is simple: magnesium glycinate or magnesium threonate, 200 to 300 milligrams, taken 30 to 60 minutes before sleep. These forms have higher bioavailability in the brain and lower gastrointestinal effect than oxide or sulfate forms. Consistency across weeks and months is what produces the insulin sensitivity and telomere level changes. The sleep effect is faster, often noticeable within 1 to 2 weeks for people who were meaningfully deficient. The night shift runs on specific raw materials. For approximately half the population, one of those materials has been consistently undersupplied. Adding it every night before the shift starts changes how completely the work gets done. If this changed how you think about what magnesium is doing beyond sleep, subscribe and leave a like. Tell me in the comments, did you know ATP has to be bound to magnesium to be biologically active? And has that changed how you think about every energy process in your body?